Let me ask you a question. What if the biggest thing slowing down your English isn't your vocabulary or your grammar?
What if it's the tiny translator inside your head?
Think about it. Someone asks you a simple question in English, you understand it, but before you answer, your brain quietly switches back to your native language, builds the sentence there, and only then translates it into English.
By the time you're ready to speak, the moment's gone. And you think, why can't I speak as fast as I think?
Today, we're going to talk about why that happens and how you can train your brain to think directly in English, one simple step at a time. Welcome to Inkwell Stories. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Leo. We're so happy you're here.
Today, we're talking about something that almost every English learner experiences. Have you ever had the right idea in your mind, but when you wanted to speak English, your brain suddenly became slow?
You knew what you wanted to say, but first you translated it into English, then you checked the grammar, then you wondered if it sounded natural, and before you could speak, the conversation had already moved on.
If that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're exploring how to stop translating in your head and start thinking directly in English. It doesn't happen overnight, but with the right habits, it becomes much easier than most people expect.
We'll share personal stories, practical tips, common mistakes, and a few simple exercises you can start using today. And don't worry, we're keeping everything relaxed and conversational, just like friends talking over a cup of coffee.
Yeah, this episode is perfect for B1 and B2 English learners, and motivated A2 learners can enjoy it too.
Whether you've been learning English for 6 months or 6 years, we think you'll leave this episode feeling more confident about speaking naturally.
And if you're enjoying these conversations, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our community.
All right, let's jump in. Why do our brains translate everything? And how can we finally break that habit?
Leo, can I ask you something?
Of course.
Do you remember the first time you tried speaking another language with a native speaker?
Oh, absolutely. I remember every second of it. I had spent months studying grammar and memorizing vocabulary. I thought I was ready. Then someone asked me a simple question. So, what do you like to do on weekends? And my brain just froze.
That's such a common experience.
It really is. I knew every word I wanted to use, but I couldn't get the sentence out. My brain was doing too many jobs at the same time. First, I understood the question. Then, I translated it into my native language. Then, I thought of an answer. Then, I translated my answer back into English. Then, I checked the grammar. Then, I wondered if it sounded natural. By then, it was way too late.
I think many listeners are smiling right now because they've had the exact same experience. And here's the interesting part. That doesn't mean you're bad at English. It usually means your brain is following a habit.
That's an important word today, habit. A habit is something you do automatically because you've done it many times before. If you've spent years translating every sentence before speaking, your brain starts to believe that's the normal way to communicate.
Exactly. And the good news is that habits can change. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. At first, every movement feels difficult. You have to think about your hands, your feet, your balance, and where you're going. But after enough practice, you don't think about those things anymore. You just ride.
Speaking English works the same way. Fluency doesn't mean you know every word. Fluency means speaking smoothly and naturally without stopping to think about every little detail.
I love that definition because so many learners believe fluent speakers never make mistakes.
That's simply not true. Native speakers make mistakes all the time. We forget words, we change our minds halfway through a sentence. Sometimes we even stop and say, wait, that's not what I meant.
Oh, I do that almost every day.
Me too. The difference isn't perfection. The difference is that native speakers usually don't translate before they speak.
Here's a question for everyone listening. Imagine I ask you, what's your favorite drink? What happens inside your mind? Do you immediately picture coffee, tea, or juice? Or do you first hear the question in your own language? Just noticing that process is a great first step.
That's a wonderful exercise because awareness comes before improvement. Awareness means noticing something clearly instead of doing it automatically. Many learners don't even realize they're translating until someone points it out.
And once you notice it, you can slowly change it. You don't have to force yourself to stop translating today. Instead, start with very small moments. For example, when you wake up tomorrow morning, look around your room and name 5 things in English. Window, chair, phone, pillow, door. Don't translate. Just look and say the English word.
I love that idea because there's no pressure. You're not trying to have a complicated conversation. You're simply connecting the object directly to the English word. Little by little, your brain starts building a new pathway.
Here's a useful expression you'll hear all the time. Little by little. It means something improves slowly through many small steps instead of one big change.
And here's a common mistake many learners make. They say, first I'll become perfect, then I'll start thinking in English. But that's backwards. You become better at thinking in English by practicing it, not by waiting until your English is perfect.
Exactly. It's like waiting until you're fit before you start exercising. That's not how improvement works. You improve because you practice consistently.
I also think people underestimate how powerful simple English can be. Sometimes learners believe they need long, complicated sentences. But imagine you're making breakfast. You can think, I'm making coffee. The water is hot. I need a spoon. I'm hungry. Those are short sentences, but they're real English.
And here's a native speaker tip. Americans often use simple sentences in everyday conversation. Textbooks sometimes make learners believe longer sentences sound smarter, but in real life, simple and clear is usually more natural.
That's such an important point. The goal isn't to impress people. The goal is to communicate. And once your brain becomes comfortable thinking in simple English, adding more complex ideas becomes much easier.
So if you're listening right now, don't try to change everything today. Just give your brain one new habit. Spend 5 minutes every day noticing your thoughts and gently replacing a few of them with simple English. It may not feel dramatic at first, but those 5 minutes can become the beginning of a completely different way of learning English. Sophie, can I tell you about something that completely changed the way I looked at language learning?
Please do.
Years ago, I met someone who spoke English very naturally. I assumed they had studied for years, so I asked them, "What's your secret?" Do you know what they said?
I'm curious.
They said, "I stopped trying to translate my life. I started living part of my life in English." At first, I didn't really understand what they meant.
That's interesting. What did they mean by living in English?
They explained that they didn't wait until English class to use English. They made English part of their everyday routine. When they cooked dinner, they thought about the recipe in English. When they went shopping, they named the things they saw in English. When they drove to work, they talked to themselves in English.
Nothing complicated, just ordinary life.
I love that because it removes so much pressure. Many learners believe they need an hour of perfect study every day, but even 5 minutes of real thinking can be incredibly valuable. Incredibly means extremely or very.
Exactly. Imagine you walk into your kitchen. Instead of thinking in your native language, try something like this. I need a glass. There's no milk. I should make some tea. The coffee smells amazing. Those aren't textbook exercises. That's real life.
And that's one reason your brain remembers those sentences better. They're connected to something you're actually doing. Our brains are much better at remembering meaningful experiences than random vocabulary lists.
Here's a learning strategy that helped me. Don't ask yourself, how do I translate this sentence? Instead, ask, how would I say this idea using the English I already know? That's a huge difference.
It really is. Let's imagine you don't know the word microwave. Some learners immediately stop speaking because they can't remember that one word. But you don't have to. You can say, the machine that makes food hot. Is it perfect? No. Does everyone understand you? Probably yes.
That's actually how children communicate. If they don't know a word, they describe it. And honestly, native speakers do that too. I've forgotten words in English before. Instead of stopping, I simply explained what I meant. The conversation kept going.
Here's a useful expression: keep the conversation going. It means to continue talking naturally without long pauses or awkward silence. That's much more important than choosing the perfect word every time.
Speaking of awkward pauses, I think many learners are afraid of silence. They believe every pause means they're failing, but that's simply not true. Native speakers pause all the time. Sometimes we're thinking, sometimes we're choosing better words, sometimes we're just deciding what we really want to say.
Exactly. A short pause sounds natural. A long pause caused by translating every sentence is what usually breaks the flow.
Hey, here's a pronunciation tip. Many learners say every English word separately because they're thinking while they speak. But native speakers often connect words together. For example, what do you want to do often sounds more like what do you want to do? You don't have to copy that immediately, but recognizing connected speech will make listening much easier.
That's a great point. Understanding spoken English isn't only about vocabulary. It's also about recognizing how words sound in real conversations.
Can we talk about mistakes for a minute?
Definitely.
One of the biggest mistakes learners make is believing they need to think of a perfect sentence before opening their mouths. That habit creates pressure, and pressure usually creates silence.
I couldn't agree more. Here's a common mistake we hear. Someone wants to say, I've lived here for 3 years. Instead, they say, I live here since 3 years. The natural English is, I've lived here for 3 years. This is because we often use the present perfect to describe something that started in the past and continues now. You don't have to memorize every grammar rule. Just notice this pattern when you hear it.
That's another important idea. Learn patterns, not just rules. When you hear the same sentence structure again and again, your brain starts using it naturally.
Exactly. Think about children learning their first language. No one gives them grammar books. They hear patterns thousands of times. Eventually, those patterns become automatic.
Here's something listeners can try today. Choose one simple topic, maybe your morning routine. Then spend 2 minutes talking to yourself in English. You don't need anyone else. You don't need perfect grammar. Just describe what you're doing. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm looking for my keys. I think it's going to rain. That's enough.
And if you forget a word, don't stop. Describe it.
Use simpler English. Smile and keep talking, because every time you continue instead of giving up, you're teaching your brain something very important.
You're teaching it that communication matters more than perfection. And once your brain believes that, speaking English starts feeling much more natural.
Exactly. The goal isn't to sound like a dictionary. The goal is to connect with people, and that's something simple English can do surprisingly well. You know, Leo, I think one of the biggest changes happens when learners stop asking, "How can I speak perfect English?" and start asking, "How can I communicate my idea?"
I completely agree. When your goal changes from being perfect to being understood, something amazing happens. You relax. And when you relax, your English usually becomes better.
That's so true. Think about having a conversation with a close friend. You're probably not thinking about every grammar rule in your own language. You're listening, you're responding, you're sharing ideas. That's what real communication feels like.
And that's exactly what we want English to become. Not another school subject, but another way to connect with people.
Earlier, we talked about building small habits instead of trying to change everything at once. I think that's worth repeating because repetition is one of the best ways to learn a language. Repetition means doing something again and again so it becomes easier to remember.
Absolutely. Imagine you spend just 5 minutes a day thinking in English. That doesn't sound like much, but over 1 week, that's 35 minutes. Over a month, it's more than 2.5 hours. Over a year, you've spent dozens of hours training your brain to think differently. Small habits become big results.
That's another expression people often hear. Small habits add up. Add up means small things combine over time to create a much bigger result. It's true for learning a language, exercising, reading books, or saving money.
I also think learners compare themselves too much. Someone says, "My friend speaks English better than I do," but that's not a very helpful comparison. The better question is, can I do something today that I couldn't do a month ago?
I love that question. Maybe last month you translated every sentence. Today you can describe your breakfast without translating. That's progress. Maybe last month you were afraid to speak for 30 seconds. Today you can talk for 2 minutes. That's progress too.
We don't celebrate progress enough. We're always looking at the finish line instead of noticing how far we've already come.
That's true. Learning a language isn't a race. Everyone has a different starting point, a different schedule, and different experiences. The important thing is to keep moving forward.
Hey, here's a communication tip that listeners can start using today. The next time someone asks you a question in English, don't panic if you need a moment to think. Instead of becoming silent, use a natural expression like, "That's a good question. Let me think for a second. I'd say." Native speakers use these expressions all the time. They give you a few extra seconds to organize your thoughts while keeping the conversation natural.
That's such a useful strategy. And here's a native speaker tip. Many learners think they need to answer immediately. But in American English, taking a brief moment before answering sounds completely normal. In fact, it often makes you sound more thoughtful.
Before we finish, I'd like to leave everyone with one simple challenge. Tomorrow, choose one everyday activity. Maybe making breakfast, walking your dog, driving to work, taking a shower, or making coffee. During that activity, try to think only in English. Not for an hour, not even for 30 minutes, just for 5 minutes. If you forget a word, describe it. If you make a mistake, keep going. If you feel uncomfortable, remember that's part of learning something new.
And don't worry if your English feels simple. Simple English is real English. Every fluent speaker started with short, simple sentences. No one begins by giving perfect speeches.
Exactly. Fluency isn't about using the biggest words. It's about expressing your ideas clearly and confidently. And confidence grows through action, not through waiting.
So, the next time you catch yourself translating every sentence, don't get frustrated. Just notice it. Take a breath, choose a simpler way to express your idea. Little by little, your brain will begin creating direct connections between English words and your thoughts. That's when English starts feeling less like a subject you study and more like a language you actually use.
And honestly, that's one of the most rewarding moments in language learning. One day you'll finish a conversation and suddenly realize, wait, I was thinking in English. You probably won't even notice when it starts happening. It will simply feel natural.
And when that day comes, remember something important. It didn't happen because you memorized thousands of words overnight. It happened because you practiced consistently, stayed curious, accepted mistakes, and trusted the process.
Every small conversation, every simple sentence, every tiny bit of progress, it all adds up.
Exactly. And we're excited to be part of that journey with you. Before we say goodbye, let's remember the biggest idea from today's conversation. Thinking in English isn't a talent you're born with. It's a habit you build, one small moment at a time. Every time you choose to describe your day in English, every time you replace translating with simple thinking, every time you keep speaking instead of worrying about mistakes, you're making real progress.
Don't wait until your English feels perfect. Start with the English you already have. A few simple words can become simple sentences. Simple sentences become real conversations. And real conversations become confidence.
Some days you'll feel like you're improving quickly. Other days it may feel like nothing is changing. That's completely normal. Learning a language isn't a straight line. It's a journey with small victories that slowly become big transformations.
So be patient with yourself. Celebrate the little wins. Maybe today you understood a new expression. Maybe tomorrow you'll use it in a conversation. Those moments matter more than you think.
And remember, every fluent English speaker was once a beginner. The difference isn't that they never struggled. The difference is that they kept going.
We believe you can do the same. So tomorrow, challenge yourself to spend just 5 minutes thinking in English. Not translating, not chasing perfection, just thinking, noticing, and communicating. One small habit today can completely change the way you speak English a year from now.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. Keep listening, keep speaking, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next episode of Inkwell Stories. Today's vocabulary: 1. Habit. Meaning, something you do regularly without thinking much about it. Example, speaking a little English every day can become a healthy habit. 2. Fluency. Meaning, the ability to speak smoothly and naturally. Example, fluency comes from using English often, not from being perfect. 3. Awareness. Meaning, the ability to notice or understand something clearly. Example, becoming aware of your translating habit is the first step to changing it. 4. Overwhelmed. Meaning, feeling like you have too many things to handle. Example, don't feel overwhelmed by difficult grammar rules. 5. Consistently. Meaning, doing something regularly over time. Example, she practiced English consistently for 6 months. 6. Automatic, meaning happening naturally, without much thought. Example: after enough practice, speaking simple English becomes automatic. 7. Communicate, meaning to share ideas, thoughts, or feelings with other people. Example: the goal is to communicate your ideas clearly. 8. Repetition, meaning doing or saying something again and again. Example: repetition helps your brain remember new vocabulary. 9. Progress, meaning improvement over time. Example: don't compare yourself with others. Focus on your own progress. 10. Confident, meaning feeling sure of yourself and your abilities. Example: the more you practice speaking, the more confident you'll become. 1. Little by little, meaning slowly over time. Real life usage: little by little, my listening skills have improved. 2. Keep the conversation going, meaning continue talking naturally. Real life usage: ask another question to keep the conversation going. 3. Give it a try, meaning try something for the first time. Real life usage: you've never spoken with a native speaker? Give it a try. 4. That's a good question, meaning a natural phrase to give yourself a moment to think. Real life usage: that's a good question. Let me think for a second. 5. Let me think for a second, meaning a polite way to pause before answering. Real life usage: let me think for a second. I'd probably choose Italy. 1 step at a time, meaning improve gradually instead of trying to do everything at once. Real life usage: don't worry about speaking perfectly, take it 1 step at a time. 7. Add up, meaning small actions combine to create a bigger result. Real life usage: 5 minutes of practice every day really adds up. 8. Step outside your comfort zone, meaning do something that feels a little challenging so you can grow. Real life usage: joining an English conversation club helped me step outside my comfort zone.
For the next 7 days, choose one everyday activity, such as making breakfast, walking, driving, cooking, or getting ready for work, and spend 5 minutes thinking only in English. While you're doing the activity, describe what you see, describe what you're doing, describe what you're planning to do next. If you don't know a word, explain it using simpler English instead of translating. Then record yourself for 1 minute answering this question: when do you translate the most, and what is one thing you'll do this week to think more in English? Try to use at least 3 expressions from today's episode in your answer.